All right, and I'll just open the meeting. This is the March meeting of the FairTV Commission by telephone this month. I'm Mark Gioia, and we have Will and David and Jerry here on the call as well. And we will get started. Where's the agenda I had up here a second ago? I tell you, the big news may be the officers' reports, the production manager's report in particular. I will note that I think it's the Board of Finance meeting tonight that is
yes.
our WebEx link.
No, it's not them. It's some other group. I don't know who they are. They were talking about real estate.
All right. Well, I'm sure it was important.
Yes.
But we will be back on WebEx next month. And we'll have a lot to talk to Jerry about on this call and in future calls as well. David, I know you got stuff going on. I don't imagine if you have a vice chairman's report, but if you do, you're welcome to give it.
I don't have anything. I had a question, but I could save it for the end.
Sure. And we don't have a secretary's report because Paul is not here. But I assume everyone saw the minutes from last month. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from that meeting. And
I'll second
anybody that. Sounds great. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There we go. That carries unanimously. So we now toss it over to Jerry. Jerry, a lot going
on. Well, I'll do the business first. I sent out with my report a copy of our grant request from the Cable Advisory Council. It's mostly backup hardware for our hub, a new desktop because for the administrator, the one we bought one a couple of years ago that we basically run exclusively for our production purposes, right? To keep it kind of clean. So we just basically use it for that. But we have the one that I've been using is about 6 years old, and it's a Z. It's a HP Z, but it's getting down the road, and I'm looking to replace it as well. Let's see, any other things? We might need to buy a TV because the TV we've been using that's down in the IT officer's office belongs to them. We own the cable box. The cable box is free to us from the cable company, but that's his TV, and we may have to replace it. I talked to him about it today. He said, well, I don't know. I don't really have a place for it in the new office, and he of course bought a bunch of really sexy, screens that, reflect an IT officer's, cool. So other than that, that's that. Things have been running along fairly smoothly. Not good. One of the important things that I think that the commission has to take on, and I did not put this in my notes, but you guys have to approach the town. I operate now. I don't know if anybody's been to my office, but you guys have to approach the town. My office is jam-packed full. It's a small office. And in the near future, that's okay. In the near future, they're going to be going over this Zoom room thing. And at least it's my design. Now, you guys are the commissioners. You can call it however you like, and the production manager, myself, for the next one should do what you want them to do. But it's been my decision that we are going to produce from the Zoom room feed, everything. We aren't going over there anymore to wherever, setting up gear, dealing with stuff, from the rigmarole the Board of Ed puts me through. God bless them. I love the work they do, but they're real taskmasters. And
roll up those cables.
It's cables. It's the PA. I mean, you know, I have to go through, you know, checkpoint Charlie to get into the room, you know. So it just isn't conducive, and I don't think a new manager would put up with it much. And also, I mean, there'll be a 2-camera setup. And they also are PZT controlled from a tablet. So the host, hopefully, and I'm training the host, might have to get another one, but Paxton will maybe serve as a host on occasion when needed. But we'll operate this tablet that will switch between cameras, and you can also, like, you know, push in, pull out, that sort of thing via the tablet on a local IP, I guess. So, and then that'll come to us. We'll make that a source in our production machine and do what we do. We'll, you know, title the meeting, lower thirds, all that stuff that we do, and produce the meeting, process the meeting, and put it out. But all from Town Hall and from the basement where my office is, and perhaps we'll get a second office where we can set up 3 production stations, 2 primary and 1 backup. We have the equipment. It's an efficient way to do it. The hub's there. We can, you know, we got a TV where we can monitor the broadcast, not just wait for it on a web stream. It's our version of what a studio would be. It's the best we can do. So, and that's something you guys got to do. You got to call Brenda or Tom Bremer, or have a meeting with him and say, you know, Jerry, and I mean, this is, if you feel this is the proper way to go. Now, if you want me to continue setting up an additional set of cameras in addition to the cameras they're going to hang, and a separate sound system and all that, they're going to take the sound system out of the BOE and incorporate it into their WebEx. We won't have access to it. So we'll have to create, if we're going to still do the multiple camera structure, we'll have to create our own sound feed. Then there'll be 2, you know, mics in the ceiling, mics on the table. That's all just too much for what this part of FairTV does. And I think, you know, we'll still have 2 people on the shoot, one a producer at Town Hall, you know, producing, publishing, you know, streaming and posting the items, and the host probably at the location. I've been trying to get out of the IT director whether this can be done outside of the room, and he isn't sure, but he doesn't think it can be. So we'll still have to have 2 people on a shoot, but, you know, the hosts are paid by the town. They don't affect, I mean, if the town didn't give us more money for hosts, then I would say we shouldn't host anymore, because that's something they've decided to do. They asked us if we do it, we'll do it as long as they fund it correctly, you know. So, but I'm not concerned about that because our budget has not been brought up in the 2 primary budget streams, the BOS and the BOF. So I think we're good to go for next year's budget. Knock wood. So that's my projection. That's my feeling about the future, but we have to secure some more space in the basement and not in the lobby area. It's too noisy with the rack and all that running at the same time. It's just distracting, and, you know, there's office space down there. Now, I know the building department's looking for 1 room to put storage in. There are 5 rooms down there. Even if we got the room that's across from my office, that would be adequate. 2 people could cover a BOE and an RTM or whatever, you know, and stream it out, publish it, broadcast it at the same time. And then a 3rd person, if we had to, could record an event from that AI source, and we publish it the next day. So that's kind of the idea I have. I think it's a proper idea. I think it's an efficient idea. and hopefully they'll do this before I move on, and I can help coordinate it. But it's not a difficult thing to coordinate. The administrator you find is, I'm sure you'll find a qualified one. David's pretty hip on production, so he's a good source, I think, probably to vet somebody that way. Other than the other folks, experience in media and media arts. So that's that part. I'll be submitting the grant in a week or so. I just want to make sure I got everything that I need, at least so the next guy's off on the right foot. It's not like you have to replace all the parts in the hub. They're there for backup because of the nature of our structure. We can't just slap in the most current 5K technology. We got to work with 3G at the highest, or so. And you can get those; they're out there. Or 3K rather. That's what I'm getting, and of course we bump up for the web stream, and there we can get more current with converters and decoders, etc. As far as the job search, the only thing I would like to say is this is your decision, nobody else's. It's not the first selectman's decision. It's not Tom Bremer's decision. It's your decision. And I would strongly suggest that although they may make recommendations, avoid the politics. And I'm not going to say any more. I actually had got a letter today from this guy, Tom Lawler, who runs a comm company. He handles WebEx and multiple meetings and shows, different kinds of, what am I thinking here? Events that he covers, from business events to, trade shows, that sort of stuff. So he's pretty hip on gear, and he's also a good administrator. He's affiliated with the Pequot Library as well. So that's a good connection. And I suggested, I tossed it out to him, and I said, if you want to, I CC'd you, Mark. You might have seen that email. Yep. But I don't know whether he'll get a hold of you or not. Maybe it's not his bailiwick. But, I can do a little bit. One of the guys that used to work for us for about 7 years is interested in the gig. His name is Nick Barini. He's a reliable guy. He's a good administrator. He did work for the Republican gubernatorial candidate in the last election year in Connecticut. Guy didn't win, but I don't think that was Nick's fault. But he's media savvy. He's very social media savvy. He's not as adept necessarily at the tech. But I am thinking of reaching out to another individual who was involved with FairTV early on. He does work for a communications development company. I don't know if he'll be willing to do it or can do it outside of his work, but he would be a good person if he's willing to volunteer some time to be our tech advisor. I've also been working with this guy up in Orange. He runs the Orange Peg, and his name is Chris Kelly, and he's a real sharp kid. And he's been helping me along the way with some different troubleshooting issues and whatnot, and he's very reliable. Well, he's reliable. He also does what I do, so he gets busy, and, so there's that factor. But, nothing, I haven't had any issues that I couldn't either figure out first or couldn't wait for him to help with a resolution. And I don't know if there's any more. Yes, at the end of June, guys, I'm moving out of town. We can't afford to stay here, but we do have a home up in upstate New York that we purchased a couple years ago, and rent it out, and we're going to take that on. And I gave the town my notice. I had to give, by my contract, I had to give the town 120 days notice. So I did that. And the only thing about my contract, which is a standard contract, is you guys should try and get rid of this insurance liability thing that I have to carry. I agreed to it because, I wanted to keep going, and they didn't really offer any solutions. But I don't know if a new manager will be willing to take it on. I know I'm not that easy with it myself. So that's something that you got to go to Jim Baldwin, the town attorney, and Brenda about. But I think that needs to be corrected. I don't know exactly how, but, it's all their equipment. It's all their rooms. It's all their stuff. I do everything feasible to prevent any trip and falls on cables and whatnot. I don't have my guys move furniture. The only thing I can think that could happen is if they drop the laptop on their toe or something. We aren't moving gear around anymore. We're over at the fire training center. David was there when I brought the gear over, and he looked at me like I was crazy, and I sort of in my mind agreed with him. So we're just doing WebEx feeds from there. I am going to try and see if I can get a better camera, or at least put the little camera they have on a longer leash so they can position it better. But that's what's going to happen over there. We're not bringing the kit anywhere anymore. There's a Board of Finance town hall that they do every year. We don't normally publish it live, but this year I'm going to go over there with one camera, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the Board of Selectwomen's town hall about Penfield, and I'm going to set up a WebEx feed, and I'm going to have an operator at town hall publishing it out to our platforms. So there you go, and there you are. I have to say, it's very interesting. You may or may not know that I was one of the originators of FairTV. I defended FairTV. I fought for money for FairTV up in the state. I have done a lot for FairTV, and I'm happy with all of it. Sometimes it sucked. Many times it was rewarding, and I'm pleased with what we have. I'd like to see us develop more into the public sector with getting the school involved, like that kid who submitted the video. That's a good video. I'd like to hire that kid. But I'm afraid his parents won't let him work at night. But maybe he might be the kid to take over the ACC video. It might be, he might find it interesting to get a link over to Sacred Heart and talk with a professor and do cool stuff in his head. If that's, he seems to be very good at documentaries. So he might be the guy to toss it to. I did try to, I just didn't have time to do it. I know I said I would try to put it together, but I've just been busy in town hall and doing the meetings and trying to stitch it together. When this came my way, my Nick, I lost one of them, not Nick, but I lost Ryan Tyler, who was a good operator who was with me for 3 years. So I was down a man. Paxton came in, and there's me, and that's it. So you really do need 3 producers. And I would recommend looking for one. A third producer besides Dan. Get a drink of water here. But that's about it. If anybody has any questions.
Jerry, it's David. First of all, I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say we know how invaluable you are in my shorter than Mark's stint on this. And I could really see it when I came that night to the fire training center, all the things you do. It kind of blew my mind. But just to kind of capture the essence of what you're saying, I get the producer part, but when you're referring to the manager, are you referring to the importance or the questionable need of somebody taking over the role that you've basically grown and,
Oh no, I think you need a manager. Somebody has to go around, for now. Well, I don't know. Like I say, it depends on when they put in the Zoom room. If they don't do it till summer, my guess is they'll still have half the summer where they'll have to stick with what we're doing. And the way we do that is all the meetings that are done over at the Board of Ed, the producer will export them as an MPEG, put them on a drive, and leave them on the desk at the front desk at the BOE. And I pick them up at 7:30 in the morning, so I can go over and process and get them on the air by 8 or 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Today I processed 3 events. 2 of them were one was a 4-hour event, the other one was a 3-hour event, and the third one was a 2-hour event. And the TPZ one I had to go in and annotate because we just picked up the WebEx because we couldn't handle running it through on a record only even. We didn't have an additional piece equipment to do it on. So I take the WebEx, which is an MP4, and I drop it into Premiere, and I title it and lower third it and find the various areas start points for the different topics and put the agenda item in. And, that's time consuming to a degree. And, but aside from that, there's grant writing, there's payroll, there's scheduling, there's dealing with all the various parts and participles. There's also acting as a producer when needed. I usually cover whatever is done at town hall, basically the Board of Selectmen meeting, because it's early afternoon. It's 4. They do it at 4, and most of my freelancers either have another job or they can't get in at that time. But also somebody might not be they're freelance, so they I gotta go to skiing or something, so they gotta fill in. So there's that as well, and there's maintaining the system. Every few months I reboot the entire hub. From the broadcast controllers to the converters, everything. It keeps them fresh and without hiccups. And all the systems that, we have 6 laptops working. I have to keep those up to date. And, so there's a lot of work that the administrator has to do, and besides just covering an event. And, and then also the administrator posts everything. Now, in the budget, and maybe you guys can see a way to reconfigure this. This is the way I set it up, but it's your commission and your operation. And you can sit down and chew on it like I had the thought, well, gee, maybe we just need a guy to run the office. That could be a part-time gig. And then we need another guy to kind of oversee production operations, and then we need the producers. So, and in the budget, I budgeted for a executive producer and a part-time person, money to cover the hosting business. By the way, the hosting is the town's business. We help them with it, but it's not like a FairTV entity. We go out and find people to do the job and whatnot, but it's their deal. And they pay for that, they pay for that. So if some budget came up one year, we're not going to pay for the host anymore. They got to, well, then we can't host anymore, But that will evolve as well with the Zoom room thing. It'll have a different kind of structure to it. So maybe the deal is you have 2 people who kind of split the administrative and post-production duties. I mean, I do all of it at the moment because I can't get, my freelancers aren't in there in the daytime, and I only have so much money for them, and I'm not going to pay them out of my pocket. So that might be something you want to consider. Sit down and look at it. If you think that the way I've laid it out works out, the executive producer will handle, like I say, all the administrative duties and some production duties. The part-time person could be either a social media person, in between, they could make sure that all the laptops are up, all the updating, all that sort of stuff, as well as filling in as a producer. And then there's the freelance producer, who strictly is a producer and strictly does the meetings. So that's the way I've configured it. But you have enough money there that you could say, well, we're going to kind of change this. And I don't think it's impossible to go. You would probably have to go back to town hall and say, look, we're going to use the same money, but we're going to break down the duties differently. No one, as long as you're not asking for more money, they more than likely will let you realign the structure.
Could you remind us what your, and I know we just talked about this in the new budget year, but where did your last fee or budget get you to? What was the figure? I want to say.
My current salary is $58,000 a year. I asked for 65, and it looks like we're going to get it. Sorry, I didn't ask for it last year. But in any case, I gave him that number specifically because my wife and I have been thinking this over and planning it, and she had to give notice in January, so, and I was going to wait a little bit because I wanted to get I'll be honest, I wanted to get the budget season started. I didn't want to create any complications. FairTV is not a town department. We are outside government service, so to speak, an NGO. And so they don't really, they can't tell you what to do, per se. I mean, you could work with them. I remember you going through this. You could work with them as you should, but they can't dictate to you. And if they don't like it, I guess they could say, well, whatever. But that's the other reason why FairTV should also consider very hard starting to raise money. And you can. You can do it without being a 503 or a 504 or whatever it is. We can raise money. We can sell people like PBS does spots, not commercials, but FairTV is supported by, Hemlock Hardware. FairTV is supported by Ravis Real Estate or whatever, Joe Blow Law Firm or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, And as long as you don't, start advertising for them. Or individuals, There are individuals who are very much into FairTV that have money. And, but that is something I would strongly recommend you start doing. That way you can also ensure your independence. Right now, they know the rules down at Town Hall. They know we're governed by the federal government and the state government, not Town Hall. So, there are laws, and everyone should check them out, in the state level and on the federal level. Federal Communications Act of 1989.
The budget comes from the town.
The labor comes from the town. Our hardware expenses come from the Cable Advisory Council grant and PEG-PISA grant. That's a state grant. And at one time, the PEG-PISA grant, you could ask for as much as you could possibly ask, $150,000 if you wanted to. They have changed that to a $25,000 cap. The Cable Advisory Council gets $100,000 a year. There's 4 towns that participate in that grant. So one can usually get $25,000. Now we're at a point we're actually going to be retiring equipment. Now there may be other stuff we need to get, but we've got 4. What do we got? We got 5 really reasonably good Sony cameras, regular cameras. We've got 6 NewTek PZT wall-mountable cameras. We will have 4 TriCasters, 2 older ones, TriCaster 40Vs, which are like mules. They work constantly. I had one rebuilt. and we have one that's been in service. It might need a tune-up down the road, and it's well worth it. And then we have a TriCaster Mini SDI 4. That's a camera. That's a system that will handle our SDI feed because, unfortunately, we are tethered to the cable companies who only give us an SDI bandwidth. And subsequently, I choose to bring everything in on SDI 720, 480. We bump it up to 1080 out to the web stream, and it goes into our broadcast controller at SDI 720. And there are particular bit rates that we have to adhere to for that. And, you know, if anybody asks you why is the picture kind of fuzzy on TV? Because call your cable company, tell them to give us HD, which they will never do. That's money for them. So until the federal government says you got to bump it up to HD, or they say we're out of here and you can just switch to being on the internet, that's kind of where we're at. But we do have a complement of equipment that people can use because we are a public access company, which means access, not just broadcasting. That means that individuals can come, and if they know what they're doing, they can make a video. Now, you guys have to say, well, you know, we're not going to get into this or that, but, you know, you can, you know, you really, I got to tell you, it's cable, and censorship is a weird place to be, which is probably why, you know, it is tricky, but that's why God made 3 a.m. in case you get anything like that. But I really don't see anything like that happening in Fairfield, you know, per se, but you never know. But I would suggest that we try to develop some community relations where people are making content for the community that we can run on our education channel. We can't necessarily run it on the G channel, and Soundview controls the public access channel, which is channel, I think, 77. In Soundview, I don't know if any of you guys know about the long and tortured relationship Fairfield and Orange and Milford and Woodbridge have suffered with Soundview, but they're kind of, you know, what's the word? Creepy. You know, they really, it amazes me that, I mean, the content that they run on the public, 80% of their programming in the public access channel is religious programming for a reason. It crowds out any other content. And in the evening, they run odds and ends, you know, this guy Joe Tuna, and, you know, a couple other things, whatever. I'm not going to critique them. They run B movies on the weekend. I don't know how they get away with that. They probably find stuff that's in the, you know, it's public domain. But they don't really have a community station. They have a station.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. I have to, Jerry. I don't mean to cut you off, but I have to basically leave the call, and you know, didn't want to miss it.
Well, I'm sorry that I took up so much time because when you're leaving, they no longer have a quorum.
Right.
But that's okay. That's okay. You got an obligation. I hope that I have explained myself.
Well, if we can, I can stick around for another 5 minutes, but I'm just
okay. I'm
not
done.
able to extend. I actually have a work obligation.
David, I'm done. I know I can go on, and I'm glad you cut me off.
Right. Well, I just thought we should, and you know, look to and Mark, see what your thoughts were for next steps. And
there is one other thing, and I hate to interrupt, Dave. There is one other thing, and I talked to Mark at this. One of our hosts, since he started, has been being paid $20 an hour. I would like to bump him up to $25, which is what the rest of the host gets, and that's it.
Yeah, David, did you want to pick up on one thing before I had that's John Dean you're talking about, Jerry?
Yes. Yep.
I put that under new business. We can do that quickly.
Oh, okay.
David, if you had one other thing you wanted to.
Well, I mean, I guess perhaps most most relevantly here, and I was actually trying to, grasp a lot of what Jerry was saying, even though he went through this when we met up, is that I'm open, at least on a part-time basis, since so much of this work falls under the kind of things that I do professionally, to take on some of this. I want to be careful saying that because I emphasize some of this given the expanse that Jerry covers. I just couldn't get into right now, what that can look like, but I do offer that up as an option if that's even, something that the committee feels is a viable alternative.
And David, if you could hang in just one more minute, I would ask Mark to bring up John's item so that you have a quorum and he can be voted on.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. And David, I think that's a good idea to throw into the mix as we try and figure out what we're going to do and how we sort of
of course
transfer the institutional knowledge that Jerry carries with him that I don't know how anybody. It makes me feel very worried about things, but I'm sure that
you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
All right. So let me quickly just jump to new business, and I'm going to make a motion to make this simple that we take up Jerry's idea to give freelancer John Dean a bump from $20 an hour to $25 an hour, which is essentially what is sort of standard. Jerry, is that fair to say?
That's what I'm paying the other hosts, yes.
Okay, so I make a motion to go ahead and make that increase of $5 an hour.
I second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that one passes, Jerry. We got that done.
Thank you very much for hanging in, David.
No, I mean, all this stuff needs to be parsed out.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
And I think the most likely scenario is some division of labor, considering what you've done. But I also am particularly sensitive, and Mark, I wanted to engage you over the holidays when I was going to shadow Jerry. I don't want to. I want to be very clear that I don't want to. I don't want there to be any conflict of interest. I obviously signed up to be, a commissioner, and I'm happy to continue doing that. But if this is a role that needs filling, and I can help do that at least partially, I'm open to it. So I'll just leave it right there for now.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think that maybe we all just think about how best to sort of make this facilitate this and.
If I may suggest, you might want to have that couple of meetings in public with each other live, which you can do.
All right.
Can I also ask, and it may live somewhere, and I know I'm newer, so I might not know where it lives. But Jerry, as you were going through kind of that extensive list of all the things that you and the other folks over the years that have done, and kind of where that division of labor may fall in the New World Order, does that live in like a task list or job descriptions or something like that, where we can kind of wrap our heads around and start maybe doing some of that assignment where
I will
and part time, etc.
I will put together an outline of what I do, my duties, and I will put together an outline of what I think a part-time assistant's duties would be, and also what a producer's duties would be. And I'll create a list before the next meeting to get to you.
That would be great.
And I'll try to get it to you at least a week or so in advance, so that you have time to go over it. But I really suggest you should do the next meeting live, so that you can, really sit down and pencil and paper and whatever,
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, Jerry. That'll be helpful.
All right. Well, then, with that in mind, and David, knowing you have time sensitivity, I will make a motion to close the meeting.
I'll second that motion.
All right. And all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Awkward on this call, but all right, that passes. We'll meet up next month, and we'll have a lot to talk about. And thanks everybody for bearing with this call. And
I mean, if you guys want to stay on the phone, I can, we can talk some more. It just won't be a meeting.
Jerry, I'll get to you, after, say a week or so, because I certainly would like to talk to you for the next meeting.
Okie doke.
Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, guys. And Jerry, we'll be talking in the meantime, I'm sure.
Yes. It's been a pleasure working with you guys. I'm not gone yet, though. I got 3 more months.
I know. We'll have plenty of time.
I'm here. I'm here to give you whatever I can give you.
All right. We'll figure this out. We'll get through it. Hey, thanks, everybody, and good night.